Today, we talk about healing and redemption for adult children of divorce and separation with Alex Wolfe, the assistant director at Life Giving Wounds, on Spirit Inspire, starting right now.
Broadcasting from the Cathedral of the Assumption in Louisville, Kentucky, this is Spirit Inspire. And now, here is your host.
Welcome back to another episode of Spirit Inspire. I am your host for today, Vincent Ricketts, and joined with me, as usual, are my co-hosts Eric Huff.
Hey, everybody.
And Chuck Obichefu.
Hey, everyone.
Today, we have in the studio a special guest, Alex Wolfe. Alex?
Hello, everyone.
So, we met, I guess that was back in March. At the Life Giving Wounds retreat here in Louisville. Mm-hmm. So you work for Life Giving Wounds. Real quick, could you tell, I guess, Eric and Chuck and our audience who y'all are and what you're about?
Sure. Do you want me to give some history too, leading up to what Life Giving Wounds is now?
Sure. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Okay, great. So Life Giving Wounds began as a kind of fruit of the John Paul II Institute. I actually went to the John Paul II Institute for Marriage and Family Studies in DC because of my parents' divorce. I'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I arrived there in about 2012, and there was a research project at the time about divorce, the effects on society, the effects on the kids. And so a classmate of mine, Daniel Miola, who was also there because of his parents' divorce, he decided, this research shouldn't stop with us. Let's take this research and put it into a weekend retreat that any child of divorce could attend. And so he started offering these retreats in 2015. Being a classmate of his, I had heard about this retreat. And I thought, interesting. Maybe one day I'll go on the retreat. And I actually put it off for a few years. By 2018, my heart was ready. I went on the retreat and I thought, why did I wait so long? So I went on the retreat. Then at that point, it was still very local, grassroots. Dan was just offering this retreat out of the John Paul II Shrine in DC. Word of mouth, really. And in 2018, I went on the retreat. And at that time, I was working for the Diocese of Arlington in Virginia, just across the river. So through my position in Arlington, I brought it over there. We got our own retreat team organized. I had so many ideas. I was like, let's do book clubs and support groups and alumni reunions and pilgrimages. And so we started a kind of second chapter, DC, Maryland, and then Arlington. And then we started getting calls from Denver and San Francisco and Miami and Boise and all of these other places saying, hey, we see what you guys are doing. We need this here. And so we quickly realized this was something much bigger than just what we were doing. And so in 2020, Life Giving Wounds became an official nonprofit. And since then, the past 5 years, Dan left his day job to work for himself, Life Giving Wounds, and has hired me. And we now have not 2, but 30 chapters across the United States, including right here in Louisville.
That's right. Yeah, we're working on getting that off the ground right now as we speak. So, praise God. And in, partnership or cooperation with Family Renewal Project here in town as well. So Life Giving Wounds particularly ministers to adult children of divorce and separation. Why is that niche needed, important? I think, like you and I especially know, like that's a particularly underserved population in the church's ministry. So why is that what you all do?
I would like to begin by making reference to something we talk about in our ministry quite often. It's called the wound of silence. The wound of silence refers to this very common dynamic in the culture where, in the context of a family breaking down, the parents are getting divorced, the question is about the child. What does he or she need? What is he or she going through? A lot of times there's dismissal, whether that's in the form of platitudes or something like that. Some examples might be, a good divorce is better than a bad marriage, right? So maybe they should get divorced. Or maybe as long as the parents get divorced amicably, then the kids will be okay. As long as the parents are happy, then the kids are happy. If the parents aren't happy together, well, they should get divorced. Maybe it's actually a blessing for the kids. Instead of one home, you get two. You get two Christmases. And I'm not like making this up. These are real things that people say. And so all of a sudden, on the inside, the child feels this devastation, this loss, this confusion, this pain. But on the outside, they're being told, oh, this isn't just not bad, but it's actually fantastic. And so there's just this this dissonance between inner experience and what we hear on the outside. And so one problem with that is we begin to mistrust our own interpretation of reality, but then we never actually attend to that wound that's there. It's like there's a dead body almost that needs to be buried that's still there. So a big part of the problem is this wound of silence. So part of our ministry is to say, let's go back to that wound, see how we were affected, and break that silence. So small groups, for example, are a big component of our ministry. Let's not just learn about how we're affected, but share our stories, relate to each other.
No. So I had somebody in my family who knew that I was going on the retreat back in March. And they said to me something to the effect of like, not that they were like not supportive of me going, but that they were like, I don't know how they're gonna talk about this issue without like demonizing the parents or something. So like, how do you all go about that issue and really invite, a spirit of forgiveness and healing like into that place?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of people, even without pressure from the outside of, oh, are you going to demonize me or your parents or whoever? There's this inner hesitation of going on the retreat because people don't want to demonize their parents or cast blame unnecessarily or dwell in the past or the pain or something like this. That is not the point of the retreat. That's not the experience of our retreatants. Myself, when I first went on the retreat as well, the point of the retreat is to look at some of the circumstances, what was done, what was said, only for the purpose of seeing how we were affected. How did it change how I approach relationships, for example? How did it change how I think about God? How did it change or affect my sense of self, my identity? Right? And so we can talk identity, for example. My parents' divorce affects me and my family name, how that makes sense. I look like my parents together, right? And so I can talk about and sort through these things in the context of other people in small groups without just dwelling on, oh, he or she did this hurtful thing to me. Right, just given the objective split, I now have a lot of this fallout. Where is home? Where's my origin? Where do I come from? How am I even still here when they're not together? It was their unity that brought me into it. So there's a whole lot of questions that need to be sorted through together.
That's a wild statement you just said. I look like my parents together. That's interesting. I mean, I know it's like, duh, right? But
it's deep.
Yeah, it's deep. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, every single person in this world looks like their parents. And so for children of divorce, they saw their parents together. They know whose unity they're supposed to be a celebration of.
Wow.
And yet now there's this question of, what does this mean? I look like their unity, but they're not united. No one's celebrating their unity because it no longer exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Chuck, and for saying that initially, Alex, because it makes me think about this principle of the theology of the body, right? That the body reveals the person.
Yep.
And that's the way we look, right? And so the fact that I look like my parents together, even if I look more like one than the other or whatever,
or different features,
I still that fact still speaks to this. I don't know, this, the union that should have been, like this good that is lacking in my life now. So like that's really, really quite incredible. How does the theology of the body in particular inform what y'all do over there at Life Giving Wounds?
I would say in a couple of ways on this question specifically. First, with one's identity, we really lean into that first and say just how confusing and difficult it is to continue looking like one's parents. You can't easily change that. You can't get a face transplant, right?
Unless you're Nick Cage.
Face off.
But again, we try to visit the wound and kind of appreciate it, for lack of a better term, fully kind of grieve that struggle, grieve that loss, acknowledge that struggle. First, before offering a pearl, some kind of hope, some kind of glimmer of something better. And so on this point of looking like our parents, for example, we also then talk about how we're made in the image and likeness of God, right? Image and likeness is a deeper thing than resemblance, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? To be in the image and likeness of God has to do with me having free will and intellect and all. I'm made in communion with others. Resemblance is really, at the end of the day, just kind of like shape of your body and face. And so that's just kind of one way that theology of the body is incorporated. One moment of our ministry, whether it's a support group or retreat, we always talk about how we're affected in love and relationships. And there is a long list of bad tendencies that children of divorce have in relationships. There can be cynicism. Oh, marriage is not worth it. Romanticism. I just have to find the one where there's going to be no conflict, because conflict means division, means divorce. So I just need to find the right person where there's no conflict.
Yeah.
Which is unrealistic.
Unrealistic.
Exactly. There's a lot of other things, people pleasing to avoid that conflict. Becoming a workaholic, interestingly enough, we kind of escape from relationship troubles in a certain way. We talk about theology of the body because what God really wants for us as an integrated self, solitude before God, real unity and transparency, and trust interdependence with each other, even if at first, as children of divorce, we have these walls up. So the theology of the body kind of gives us a roadmap for God's plan for love and marriage, where maybe we didn't have a good example of that plan at home because of the divorce.
In the legal system, I've done some divorces. They're not nice at all. And I've had some reticence about doing any more divorces, but there's this concept of, everything is done, if there are children in the marriage, everything is done within the best interest of the child. Mm-hmm. And I think most states in the country, you have that standard. But again, I don't have some deep bench of experience, but from what I've seen more often than not, it's the best interest of the child from the perspective of maybe one parent or the other. Rarely, unfortunately, is it from they're making a decision together from a unified perspective for the best interest of the child. And I don't know if you've seen that kind of that singular perspective of what's best for the kid in the wake of a divorce has any like third or fourth order effects in, like how they're handling the divorce, or like those wounds that they have in the wake of the divorce.
Yeah. I mean, divorce is the ultimate breakup, and how many breakups are perfectly mutual? Like very rarely. And so, there's usually one or another party, or maybe both parties, that are kind of making divorce kind of the best quote unquote option. But even then, even if, say, in a really bad case where there was total chaos, maybe there was abuse of some kind, heaven forbid. And maybe given this circumstance, it's kind of reasonable. The Catechism actually says in some instances it's moral for these parents to separate or even civilly divorce. Even in that case, there's a loss for the child, because marriage is good. Marriage wasn't the problem. Sin was the problem, right? The bad behavior patterns or whatever. Sin was the problem, not marriage. And so given that, when there's a divorce, there's a loss. And so that's what we're here to do, setting aside what the circumstances may have been about the divorce. Something good was lost, and that's worth grieving.
How do you help someone, an adult child of divorce, untangle the messiness of their situation, particularly if it's been many years since the divorce, right? And what I'm really getting at is like, how I've been affected by the decisions of my parents, but there's also, and so there's a psychological dimension to that, and there's a spiritual dimension to that is beyond my control. And then there's how I've handled that. Maybe I've responded with sin, right? And so like I've added to the pain, right? Made the wound worse by my own response to it,
Yeah.
and that can get really muddled. So how do you help someone like work through that?
That's a good question too. Another moment on our retreat, besides love and relationships and identity, another moment is talking about the emotional life, the interior life, coping mechanisms that we can develop. A lot of times we develop these coping mechanisms, whether it's a bad relationship, or it's alcoholism, or drugs, or gambling, video games endlessly, or work. All of these things that serve as escapes, anesthetizing the pain. We point this out to people. Look, it's not human. Who would want to spend all day playing video games, or who wants to be in a bad relationship? Maybe there's a relationship between these things that you do that you don't want to do, right, St. Paul? Mm-hmm. These things that you do that you don't want to do, but you can't seem to break free of. Maybe it's because there's a deeper wound. Maybe it's your parents' divorce. Maybe there's other deep wounds like parental divorce that are also there. Maybe seeking healing at a deeper level will unlock the ability to then make progress on these bad habits that have been formed. So that's something that we introduce as an idea on a retreat, for example. It's then more up to that person to kind of connect the dots, because maybe sometimes there's bad habits that come from some other wound. Or maybe, as you said, maybe there was parents' divorce, and then they search for healing in all the wrong places, and they take on further wounds. Then they need healing in like 4 different places. Mm-hmm. I've seen that before too, unfortunately. So we introduce this as an idea, and we're there to help walk with them. But if there's other wounds besides parents' divorce, we kind of help them see that and then say, here's these other ministries that are out there. But it's an important question, because a lot of times people don't think to look deeper. One example, at this conference that I am in town for, the Catholic Family Life Association conference, there was a panel on suicide. It was like a mental health panel. What can we do about suicide? We're losing all of these faithful priests to suicide even. And wow. Yeah. And so the question, this whole panel was about suicide. But one thing that needed to be brought up late in that panel was suicide isn't random. People who think about suicide, contemplate suicide, are doing so because of some deeper wound. You got to get underneath that ideation. And sometimes it's something like your parents divorced, or you were abused as a kid, or something like that. You've got to address the deeper wound. And then you can see, suicide, all of these other things are symptoms of the deeper disease. So that is something we bring up on the retreat, but sometimes it's a very tangled mess.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Definitely.
Just in the ministry kind of byline of adult children of divorce, obviously all adults now, but is there any distinction that you see that between those who were children when the divorce occurred and then those who were already adults? Because coming from a divorced household, and I can kind of see within my sibling and myself that the impact is very different. And so, I was just interested if you had anything to give to that.
Yeah. So the fundamentals are very similar no matter what the circumstances may be, but there are some differences given, I mean, what gender you are too. But certainly this question of age. So for example, I was 20 years old when my parents divorced. I was a senior in college. My youngest sibling was 4. So we have kind of different experiences. For me, I had a profound anxiety afterwards because for 20 years, I saw us as a big, happy Catholic family.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that was changing. My parents taught marriage prep and NFP classes.
Yeah.
We all went to Catholic school, prayed the rosary together, mass, all of this. And so when it became clear to me that my family was falling apart, I thought, have I been living a lie all of this time? Where, like, it hit me out of nowhere. Now I've since learned there were problems along the way, but I had this bad anxiety for several years. And then it kind of relapsed later. I had this problem with anxiety because it happened later for me.
Yeah.
For my younger brother, who was 4 at the time, my concern for him is that, now that he's becoming a young adult and dating for the first time, my concern there is that because he has no concept of what mom and dad looked like together. Now I can remember it.
Yeah.
But he never saw it. And so my concern for him is that he would struggle with unity in a relationship because he's only ever seen mom has her life, dad has his life. They have their different places, different routines, different beliefs. And so, yeah, that's just one example, I guess, of how it could be different for age.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate everything you just said there. And there's this dissonance that I had even walking into the room just now is, my parents got divorced when I was like 18. So, I'm like, it's not really applicable to me. It's probably more of the silent stuff that you were talking about is that wound of silence. So, like it really hit me when you're like, I was 19, you were even older. So, I'm like, well, I don't have that. I had probably 50 excuses just since we've been sitting here.
I told myself the same thing.
Fermenting in my head. So, that's really good to hear. And, I don't know if I knew too much about the retreat. So I wish I had experienced it here in Louisville, but it sounds like we've got more opportunities too.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Okay, yeah.
So.
Or potentially more opportunities soon. So, that's really good to hear.
What are so Eric, you said you had like 50 different excuses. What are some of the most common excuses for not seeking healing, whether that's through life-giving wounds or counseling or whatever other avenue you might go for an adult child of divorce in particular?
Yeah, I would say the first one is I'm fine, right? I graduated, I got a job, I got married. What's the problem? I'm functional. What's the big deal? Or I should be over it. It happened so long ago, 20 years ago, what have you. Another one is, well, I don't want my parents to feel bad. We kind of mentioned this. I don't want my parents to think that I'm like rebelling. And so I'm not going to seek any kind of help because that presupposes that I don't like them or that they're terrible or something. But yeah, sometimes people put off coming on retreat or going to counseling because they think, is this just going to be sad the whole time? Is this just going to be a long weekend of just dwelling in what could have been, what we've lost? Let's just think about the glory days and just pout about it being over. We grieve the loss. We mourn, right? Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. So we find comfort in grieving the loss. But I don't know about you, but at the end of a retreat, there's a kind of joy because turning to the faith for answers, we find from our faith abundantly more than what we've lost. This is a theme in the Bible too, right? Job loses everything, he gets back even more.
Except his wife. He didn't lose.
I really appreciate that Job kind of loses family because I feel like we can kind of relate that to that in some sense. We've lost some family, but in the church we find a family too.
In fact, I heard a joke because I think his wife said, and Joe's like, you should curse God and die after all that stuff happened to him. But he lost everything, but he didn't lose. And I heard this joke. He's like, Joe probably asked, "Could you take her too?" I'm sorry, let's put that in there. But yeah.
Has anybody seen The Meaning of Life, the Terrence Malick movie?
No.
He does a really excellent job. It's one of my favorite films of just taking the entire Job, like, I guess, concept, and he even quotes immediately the first lines that God responds to Job with. And it's kind of the basis. The movie's a little tripped out. It's not linear in any way, but it kind of goes back to
now I remember what you're talking
back to his childhood and then into his present day life and that sort of thing. But really, it's the entire movie is it's using, you know, modern technology too, and seeing like the actual universe, I don't know, through the Hubble or something, and beauty and truth. But it's really God's response to Job is the entire theme of the movie. It's really excellent. So yeah, I would definitely
like the whole, like, you know, gird yourself because now I'm going to talk to you like a man. Or I think that's
well,
what he says.
it was just like, yeah, and his response is really, where were you?
Yeah, where were you?
When I created everything, and continue to create everything, and yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful stuff. One thing I kind of want to turn back to is and it's something I kind of wrestle with now, being in the Catholic community and with my own baggage and excuses that we don't need to explore the podcast. But it's just thinking, and one of those excuses that I often have is like, well, I didn't come from a Catholic family. And so you know, that one I can easily tuck it away in. But again, just talking to you here today, and from my own lived experience with good friends who did come from Catholic families that experienced divorce, is you know, it's not it doesn't make you immune. It doesn't mean that well, because I'm Catholic, that my marriage is going to be successful now as some kind of magic wand or something. Shield. Or shield. But I do see difficulties, and even for me intellectually and emotionally, it does seem like it's more difficult if you are in, like you said, like a really strong, happy Catholic family, and for that to fall apart, it lends to doubt and despair, even to somebody who doesn't experience that. Yeah. Well, maybe we don't have it right, or something like that. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, definitely. Faith is a big question. It seems from studies that when a secular, non-believing family divorces, the children have actually a kind of likelihood to become religious, perhaps for the first time, because they're looking for a father and a shepherd, and they find that in a church community. But for religious, Catholic or not, religious families, the tendency is there's a deep crisis of faith for a lot of reasons. One being, okay, well, you're telling me God is a father and my dad was whatever, abusive, abandoning, really harsh, or what have you. And then you try to see God through that paradigm. It doesn't make you want to go to church and believe in God as our Father. And so on the converse, in the Catholic Church, we have Mary, who's offered to us as our mother. If one had problems with their earthly mother, you don't want a second mother because the first one was enough to deal with. Yeah. And so the familial language in the faith makes it really difficult as a child of divorce to continue believing and to continue to participate in the faith community. It's also just awkward, right? Marriage is highly esteemed. It's a sacrament. We have these beautiful teachings of theology of the body, NFP, these big families of 8 kids, whatever. And then you're from this like really messy situation. It's just awkward. Yeah. You feel labeled and stuff like that. Another thing is children of divorce in this religious context, they pray really hard. God, please keep mom and dad together. And then when that doesn't happen, seems like the prayers went unanswered, right?
Disillusionment.
Yeah. And so there's this deep crisis of faith in that way too. And one final thing I'll bring up is that sometimes, unfortunately, people will make reference to God's will in the context of the divorce. This was something I unfortunately experienced when my parents, because, my family, Catholic, everyone's Catholic. Some people, for whatever reasons, surrounding the divorce began to say, "Oh, this is God's will. This don't worry, this is God's will." that was really confusing to me. Here I was studying theology at DeSales University in Pennsylvania, studying theology, and then all of a sudden my parents are splitting up, and I'm being told this is God's will. And I remember thinking, I don't think so. I don't think that's right. I don't think God brings people together in marriage and then apart willy-nilly. In fact, isn't marriage supposed to be a sign of God's faithfulness to us? Isn't that what we believe is kind of about marriage, and not just people for whatever circumstantial reasons, material reasons, perhaps want to split, or for freedom, quote unquote, or something like that. I don't. So that's why I had these questions about God's will, teachings of marriage and the family. That's why I went to the John Paul II Institute. But I think a lot of people, that's not uncommon for someone in the situation to say, oh, there's God's plan, God's will. And then that changes some people's theology. Oh, if this is God's will, then God is kind of arbitrary. He just does what he wants. He kind of flies by the seat of his pants and doesn't care if people get hurt.
Deus ex machina.
Deus ex machina. And then people lose their faith because they're like, oh, if God is like that, then I don't love God.
And they're probably not even thinking it like explicitly necessarily. Like it's just sort of this underlying assumption that most of us aren't aware of.
Yeah, people try to say that kind of stuff maliciously, like they're trying to disrupt or cause someone to leave the faith. I think it's all just very naive in a certain sense, trying to make sure no one's feelings are hurt with decisions they've made, maybe something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's tough when.
So what caused you, in your experience, do you think it sounds like, sometimes you have the option that you can, hey, throw everything out the window. You're already studying theology. But it sounds like you really kind of doubled down and wanted to get to the heart of this, in truth. So what kind of, what was the impetus behind that decision?
Well, for one thing, I was a senior in college, so I had to figure out my next step anyways. So there was that. I was already applying to grad schools elsewhere. But then because of the divorce and the God's will question, I began looking at, okay, maybe marriage and family specifically. Studies show that children of divorce, by the numbers, large swaths of children of divorce leave their faith. So there's this high apostasy, leaving the faith. But for those who don't leave it or eventually come back, there's high religiosity. So it's almost like for any child of divorce, no matter what, your faith is going to change. For most people, they're going to diminish in faith. For those who don't lose their faith, they're going to go all in. And I like to bring up this analogy of a sheep on a farm. I don't know if you guys know this, but I met a shepherd once a couple of years ago. He told me about this. A female sheep will sometimes give birth to 2 little lambs instead of just 1, especially if it's not its first birth. Anyways, sometimes when the 2 little lambs come in for milk, one will be recognized by the mother, but sometimes the second one is not. Because unlike a human where we know we're giving birth to twins, the ewe just kind of knows it gave birth, and now it's like, where did the second one come from? Yeah. So it rejects one. It allows one to come in for milk, but the other it kicks away, or even like headbutts. It's really you can see this on YouTube, actually. It's really, really sad. But that little lamb can be saved if the shepherd notices what's going on. If the shepherd sees that lamb is rejected and bottle feeds that lamb, the bond that forms between that little lamb and the shepherd is stronger than the one between the first sheep and its mother. That rescued sheep will go out in the field and kind of prance around like without a care in the world, and then jump up in the lap of the shepherd and like lick his face and like nuzzle him and like crawl all over him with, just completely carefree and playful. I love that analogy because whether it was mom or dad or maybe both in your situation, if you can find the good shepherd, you can find something more than what was lost.
There's nothing I lack.
Yeah. And so in that way, I I feel like that was my experience. Like I felt like I was lost, rejected in some sense. Again, I won't give details, but I kind of felt lost. But then I was able to find in our faith answers for what I was losing.
That's amazing. Yeah. It really puts an awesome spin too on the Good Shepherd analogy.
Yeah.
Or I guess reality of the Good Shepherd. And then also thinking about how many times in Scripture do you get these references and that people are so connected to in the time and place of the Bible. I mean, even think about the prophet Nathan when he goes to David with that man is you speech, and he's like, say you had a little lamb and it even drank out of your cup. That it was something that people could connect to. It's just really, it's really amazing. And it is just so indicative of God's relationship with us. In a way I've literally never thought about. So my mind blown on that one. That's awesome.
There's something that you and Eric touched on that made me think, and sorry, I started thinking about excuses as well too, but also my parents were in the middle of separating when my dad died. Right.
Wow.
So my dad died when they were separated but not divorced. My mother is still a widow technically. But I didn't learn the auspices of what was causing the separation fully until kind of older. You know, we kind of just buried was not healthy. Like kind of just didn't really address it. And, you know, I had younger siblings too. I was 7 when it happened. I had 2 other younger siblings that were, I think, 2 and 3. But what was causing the drift between them and led to the separation, I didn't learn that until I was older. And I definitely think that kind of like the gradual revealing, not because I wasn't asking questions, but because, you know, my mother wasn't really, she was like, let's move on past it, you know. It definitely affected the way I viewed marriage and union later in life. I mean, do you come across that where there's like you don't have the full picture up front as to the why, but I don't know, because it is you don't really learn all of what happened later. It's affecting you later in life. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say this. I don't think it's necessary to know all of the gory details to understand and have a grasp of how I've been affected and what the way forward might be. In my experience, I remember spending a couple of years trying to dig up some details because it hit me such a blindside. 20 years we were all together. And so I am glad I did poke around a little bit. I discovered a couple of things. But in the end, I gave up that quest because I realized I know enough to understand where I've been affected and how I can work on those things. And so I gave up the kind of the historical search and focused more on the healing journey. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like you just kind of abandon a certain part of the inquiry. Not abandon, but like you leave it alone.
Yeah. It's so hard. I think oftentimes in life, living with the tension of something, whether that's the big questions like, does God exist, or questions about your health and your future, is I think one of the most life-giving things that my faith does, and that God does for me, and the grace, and maybe this is just coming with age, is being able to live with those tensions, living with those tensions like we see it now.
You're content.
And just know, hey, there might be a tension here, and you know, if God wants to open something up and to solve it, that's great. That might be miraculous in my life, but just be that contentment of just knowing and trusting in God's plan in that way. Through it, that you might not have the answer, that He does have an awesome plan for your life. Even if there's these things around you outside of your control, which there's so many, not just in the realm of divorce. In in the realm though of divorce and adult children from divorced families, one of the things you brought up at the beginning was kind of that research. And I can't remember who you said was the founding guy.
Daniel Miola.
Yeah. So the Daniel had kind of had this research and he wanted to share it out there. Is there anything with the research that you can share with us? You're so knowledgeable on it and you've hit it with a lot of the questions already. But that's something I'm very interested in.
Yeah. So the John Paul II Institute compiled a lot of the research and published a couple of things. Some of the foundational texts from that project were Between Two Worlds by Elizabeth Marquardt in 2006. The subtitle of that book is The Inner Lives of Children of Divorce. And page 1 starts with this point that I brought up before, namely, a lot of children of divorce do fine in school and work and in their marriage, but it's all of the hidden it's the hidden life where we're really affected: identity, faith, emotions, forgiveness, and all of these things are not seen. There's no metric to show how I'm doing in terms of my identity, for example. So Between Two Worlds really uncovered a lot of these interior questions. Another one particular thing being a loss of childhood, a loss of playfulness. And not just like a childlike trust, although certainly that also. But children of divorce a lot of times don't know how to just relax, just rest, just play, just be. Part of that is because perhaps we had to start working at an early age because maybe we're living with mom and she doesn't make a whole lot of money and I have to start working at 16 or something like that. Or it's just, I don't know if I'm going to be fed this evening because whatever the circumstances. And then we end up becoming adults and we're not playful anymore. And so we're not dreamers. We don't dream of a better life. We don't take the time to just go to a baseball game and just have fun. We had a speaker on our retreat in Arlington, Virginia, who was like, I can't just go to a baseball game. I have to make it like a networking opportunity. I have to bring my coworkers and we have to get work done during the baseball game.
Sounds frighteningly familiar, but yeah.
Yeah. And so, we lose this kind of this playfulness, or like if there's a day where we have nothing going on, nothing on our schedule, we feel guilty because we're not doing something. We're not being productive. That's not good.
Yeah.
Right? Scriptures tell us, Jesus said, unless you become like a child, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. He takes our childhood very seriously. It's not only possible to be recovered, it's mandatory to be recovered. Yes, we'll work in the kingdom of heaven, but we also play in the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's even Aristotle who says that the most important things in life are the least useful. And I could be misquoting that. It's like, it's going to be somebody else. I know when we roll back and look, but the most important things in life are the least useful. And that concept of play, like doing something just as a means to its own end. And I think that other factors in the world, that there's this huge push to that. And I feel it every day is I get, that's the time when I feel anxious or uneasy is the time periods when I need to rest and play and recover my own sense of self. And I had it happen. I got sick. I went home sick from work yesterday. And I can speak to this. And like, I had not done any of the chores that I needed to get done around the house in a week, but I just got to lay in bed for a couple of hours, play on my phone, do whatever. And just getting that little bit of rest, then I was just killing it. Like I could go out and be useful again, but like it wasn't immediately clear to me that I did need to take that time and just kind of be for a little while. And there's just so much stuff. Everybody's schedules are so packed now, and it feels like there is this motor running that's constant, and it's not human. Like that is not how human beings work, is just acting like a machine all the time to get things done, and serving useful purposes all of the time.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Aristotle, because I think in two ways, off the top of my head, for one thing, he talks about the life of the philosopher being the best kind of life, because you're not working. You just get to sit and read all the time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is his talk about friendships, right? There's the lower kinds of friendships, friendship of use and of pleasure. The best kind of friendship is the friendship of the good, where you're not actually like making something, you're not working for it, you're not producing something together. It's just chilling. Yeah. Like you're two philosophers, you just get to sit and be together.
Yeah.
And so one thing I have discovered is very popular for children of divorce: adoration.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to do a whole lot. You don't have to be super productive in prayer. You just be. You just sit.
Yeah.
We love it.
At least that's how you probably should do it.
Yeah.
But like even for me, like the temptation to be doing something always, you show up and it's like, all right, I've got an hour. All right, I got the rosaries. There's about 20 minutes there. I got some reading here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can like be tempted to sort of like fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like even that. Have you noticed in like areas in your own life where that just that particular mentality born out of that wound, and really I'm asking about the spiritual life, like where that you see those effects? I mean, I know, and being trained in these things, I'm sure it's easier to see it, or at least maybe you have a good spiritual director that points it out, and then you see it, right? But do you have any experience like that you'd be willing to share?
So the question, just so I'm clear, is like, how am I affected kind of in my spiritual life by the confusion following?
Yeah, because I think that many of us have a very performative relationship to the spiritual life and the prayer. And I have a gut feeling that that's worse for children of divorce.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I always like to take an opportunity where possible to sort of let people know that they're not crazy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think given the difficulty for children of divorce to embrace God our Father, Mary as our mother, for circumstantial reasons, whether it was mom, dad, or perhaps both, this can be a way forward for a lot of children of divorce. If dad was the problem, for lack of a better word, really coming to embrace God as our Father is hugely healing, and it can change the entire way they experience Father's Day, for example. Right? Father's Day is always celebrated, but if dad was not some figure to be celebrated, Father's Day is something dreaded. Mm. And then that can be completely renewed and transformed if all of a sudden God is the Father that dad was not a good reflection of. And so Father's Day can be all about celebrating God our Father. And again, Mary is our mother. Like, she is the mother that we really need. What do we really need in a mother? Someone who nurtures us and leads us to Jesus. That's what our moms are supposed to do. Some do that really well. Some don't do that well. In any case, we can all turn to Mary and find this figure who is the mother that we need. And so I think that being such a common problem for children of divorce, that the dad or mom thing really becoming devoted to God our Father or Mary our mother is just a kind of a no-brainer in a lot of ways.
So it strikes me that, there's on that subject of disillusionment of children in divorce where they're seeing the fracture happen and they're seeing, man, okay, my mom and dad really dropped the ball on this marriage thing. Yeah. And I think we were talking earlier how it essentially forces them to maybe feel like they need to grow up faster.
Yeah.
And so so two questions. One, I guess in the ministry, how are you keeping, the participants from, or helping them reverse that the disillusionment of, well, they, mom, dad screwed the pooch. Maybe I'm more susceptible to doing the same thing myself. And then two, not lose my train of thought. Two, how are you? I said something. I just lost. I just lost it. First question. That first question. Yeah, there. It'll come back. It'll come back. It'll come back.
So you had mentioned thinking that we might kind of repeat the cycle, maybe because maybe we didn't have a good role model. We don't have a good maybe map of how to do this the right way, and maybe because of the wound, we're maybe now more susceptible to make mistakes.
Maybe genetic. I don't know.
Yeah, and so one thing that we like to bring up on retreats is Lord of the Rings, and this might come as a surprise, but Aragorn is the descendant of Isildur, right? At the very beginning of the tale, Isildur is the one who cuts off the hand of Sauron.
Cast it into the fire.
Cast it into the fire, and he says no, right? He takes it for himself, and then he's betrayed by the ring. He's killed. The ring falls into obscurity for 2,500 something years. Then it's found by Diegol. Smeagol kills him because it's his birthday. He's obsessed by it, becomes Gollum. He misplaces it. Bilbo gets it. He gives it to Frodo. Frodo is tasked with destroying the ring. And who is in his fellowship but Aragorn, the long-descended heir of Isildur? Both in the book and in the movie, he has this deep-seated concern that he is going to do the exact same thing. The blood of Isildur runs in my veins. He said no. Am I going to make the same mistake? It's really prominent in the movie. He's really scared about this. And it's Arwen who has to tell him, you're your own man. In the book, it's actually kind of the opposite. She's like, aren't you afraid because you're Isildur's heir? And he's like, no, I make my own decisions. And you know what helps him? He focuses on his true identity. He is the king of Gondor. By the end, he rises to the throne again. His true identity, his true mission. And it's through this kind of united journey, remembering his royal call, right? We're beloved sons and daughters of God. If we can focus on this true identity and the fact that we make our own decisions, we can break the cycle. We're not doomed to repeat the cycle, even though that's a very real concern of ours coming out of this family breakdown.
I remember the second part of that question. It was, is it a concern that kids are aged by divorce?
Yes. So I think you said it very, very aptly. They have to grow up fast. And I think that becomes, compoundedly bad when children are told to wear this as a badge of honor. You're so resilient. For being 8 years old, you're so responsible and grown up and independent. And the kid is like, yeah, you're right. I am a little adult. And one thing that's brought up in Between Two Worlds, Marquardt was told this exact thing. A lot of her relatives telling her, oh, you're so grown up for such a little kid. Until one family member said, you know, it's kind of sad that you have to be a grown up. And for the first time she awoke to this idea, like, I am a kid. I am supposed to just be playing out there with the other kids. And here instead I'm trying to be an adult. There is something wrong with this. I have something out of place. And so I think it's important, first of all, to recognize, this loss of childhood in this sense. But it's certainly possible to recover a playfulness as an adult in a way that's appropriate too.
Do you find that there's a susceptibility to these kids being resentful because they don't have, like, they are angry that they lost a part of their childhood because of their parents' actions?
Yes, which is why another important facet of our ministry is forgiveness. Forgiveness is the apex. It's the longest talk on our retreat. It's longer than the other talks by a margin. And I mean, in this talk, we also talk about boundaries because a lot of us have trouble saying no because these are our parents. We're supposed to honor our father and mother, right? Yeah. Maybe that's weaponized against us in some contexts, but we don't want to cut mom or dad out. We don't want to say no, and maybe they're very forceful or something about being in our lives. So we do talk about boundaries, but forgiveness is so key because a lot of us just want to, or we don't know the way out of that bitterness. We maybe have a very clear picture of what all was lost. Maybe it was financial too. Maybe we had a nice home and friends and food and parties, and then both parents went bankrupt or something after the divorce. And so there's a lot of ways in which we can see just how much was lost and easily get caught up in that bitterness. So it's very important that we talk about forgiveness. A lot of times we think we're afraid. A lot of times we're afraid of forgiving because we think it's letting a prisoner go free.
Yeah.
But when we forgive, we find that we were the prisoner.
Yeah.
So it's
And like we were in the cell with our own key. And by forgiving, we're letting ourselves out.
Yeah. That unforgiveness is like wanting someone else to die and then drinking the poison yourself kind of analogy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that was really coming to mind for me earlier is, and I'm sure you get into it into the retreat and it deals directly with the forgiveness, but like a lot of the things that people say to you, and sometimes it's hurtful. If somebody loses someone they love, they do the God's plan thing too. Yeah. And like, obviously I slipped in there earlier, but I think like contextually it's different. Like obviously when things seem like an evil or a grave hurt, it never helps to be like, hey, it's God's plan. When something like a marriage or someone passes away in your life and you lose that thing, it's clear that there's almost an absence of God there.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking is in terms of that, and then there were some other examples too, and I can't think of them off the top of my head, but some of them being that loss of childhood where, hey, there's these things that you're told, and then kind of this perception that you build of yourself, this exterior facade. What are some of the ways? I know forgiveness is probably the biggest one for that, but how to work through those kind of hurts where it may be something someone said that might have been misguided, or something that someone said that causes you to kind of create something that's not you. And I don't know if you were getting at that or not, but I've definitely felt that in life, is that I feel like I have to become something that I'm not, and maybe I sit with that and wear that mask for a long time, for years. So how do you start to work through those things? And I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent. I need to just go to a retreat eventually. So, but is there anything you can talk to with us here?
Yeah, we have found, not just through research, but through talking with real people in our ministry, there are a lot of roles and labels that people kind of are given or fall into or make themselves. And some of those are, I was the golden child, or I was the forgotten one, or I ended up being the religious one, or I became the clown, which sometimes people become because they're trying to if they try to be too serious, they get too sad. So they just make everything a joke. So there's a lot of different roles that people take on, and not just in relationships, although there's certainly a lot there too. People take on these roles in their family context, mm-hmm. the blank child, the X child, the Y child. But then also just that kind of becomes a persona that they are to people in their workplace or in their own families that they don't do. And that's tough. That is a tough thing to work through. But again, if we can find our true identity, beloved sons and daughters, and start there. Yeah. Start there, and then we can kind of become a little bit better predisposed to discover who we really are authentically in our temperament, our personality, stuff like that, and kind of grow out from that restrictive label. But it is pretty common.
In that regard, how much of that, like, I don't know, I feel like out of some of this great suffering, there could be blessings to that too. I was thinking, with the funny one. I wish I was funny. I wish I was the funny one I try to be, but I can't. But like, I don't know. I mean, is there anything that could be not necessarily positive stemming from that, but it seems like it would be really hard to differentiate, especially if you've done something for a long time. You could become really good at it. Is there a way to differentiate between like a healthy way where it's like, hey, you could have stand-up comedians that came out of a bad situation, and then kind of use that in a healthy way. And then what's kind of a good way to differentiate what's unhelpful and harmful even?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like what you said about comedians, because a lot of them use this dark humor. Yeah. And then they make a career out of it. Or, the workaholism that we mentioned before, it turns out that makes you a really good businessman. Yeah. And you can end up becoming really, really successful. Kind of still sad and suffering. Yeah. But successful in outward ways. I think, it really depends on what God has in store. Because clearly for Dan, my coworker, and for me, there was mysteriously some kind of plan where it was not God's will that we go through certain things. Right. It was not good that certain things were done to us. But ultimately, the good of a ministry that helps a lot of other people who have been through what we've been through too, clearly this is some good thing. Now, I know when I went off to college, I would never have chosen any of this for myself. No. The fallout of my family or working for this nonprofit. But God had some kind of plan ultimately. But still we have to make a distinction. It was not God's plan that these bad things happen. Right. Right. And like a big example of that is Old Testament Joseph, who was betrayed by his family pretty deeply. Yeah. His brothers were jealous of him. They threw him in a well and then sold him into slavery. He really suffered for a long time as a slave, and then he was wrongly accused and thrown in jail. Yeah. Now God lifted him up to become the vice regent, and he ended up saving his family. So it worked out in the end. But still, his brothers can't say, "Oh, it was God's will that we put you in slavery, that we sell you down the river."
Maybe it's permissive will. But not
right. There's in theological circles, there's different categories of speaking about it. Yeah. And at the end too, you can say God did have a plan for good. God can write straight with crooked lines, all of that. But in the end, the brothers can't go to Joseph and say, "You're welcome. You're welcome. We take credit for this beautiful thing that's happened." No, they're answerable for what they did wrong. Still, mysteriously, God had a plan. Joseph wouldn't have chosen any of those things for himself either. Yeah. But just saying yes to.
Well, and he even says that. I mean, Joseph says that to them. Like, you meant that for evil. Yep. God used it for good. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, I think that speaks really poignantly to the name of your apostolate, Life Giving Wounds. Yeah. What's that about?
Yeah. So I think it's a kind of edgy name because when our parents divorced, it's so life draining. And perhaps because there's just no chance for reconciliation, or for you, like father passes away. Now there's like not even a shred of possibility of them getting back together. It can kind of feel like, okay, well, mom and dad ain't getting back together, so I'm out of luck. I will never be happy. I will never have resolution to this problem. It is just going to suck forever. That's how it can feel. And yet, when we turn to the faith and find community with each other and make progress in the interior life and in relationships and forgiveness and all of this, then it's almost precisely because I went through what I did that I now can be a resource for others, that I can allow my suffering to open a space for others to find healing. And that's where that title comes from. Life Giving Wounds. It's not just I survived and now I'm good. It's I had to survive for a while. Now, I like the analogy of like a broken leg. The first thing, you got to get out of the situation that broke your leg. And then you got to go to the doctor and he's got to set it. And then you've got to kind of receive care for a while.
Yeah.
That's the first kind of stage. You got to receive first. But then at one point in rehabilitation, you've got to actually walk and work out and condition a lot to heal. And so similarly, recovering from our parents' divorce, like survive and get out of the situation first. Then a lot of receiving stage of healing. But then at another point, to continue the healing journey, we've got to like turn outwards and help others. There's a passage in Isaiah where God says, oh, you put on this fast, but you still drive your workers. You still do you don't act any differently. You call that a fast?
Yeah.
Isn't this rather the fast that I would, what I would rather? Yeah. Care for others, open your home, feed the hungry. Don't turn your back on your own. I hear that. I'm like, who are my people, right? Other children of divorce. Don't turn your back on your own. Then your wound shall quickly be healed. You will say, where are you? And I'll say, here I am. And so that's
conditional healing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's like a receiving part first, and then you've got to kind of go on mission. And that's like how our retreats and support groups end. It's what is your next step? Because eventually, maybe for some of you, it's going to be still receiving. But for others, like maybe get involved with us, maybe go into getting a counseling degree, maybe get involved in another charity. Maybe it's build your family, whatever it may be. But there's got to be at some point a turning outward where my experience bursts forth into life for others.
Yeah.
Is there are you finding, or do you see, or is it structured this way already, wherein this ministry acts as a portal for people that, like you talked about like the deeper wounds, right? But what if they like need like actual therapy, right? Like the retreat's not like for like we're doling out,
Yeah.
like shrink sessions, to folks. Like you might need to actually see a psychologist for, because we've uncovered a trigger, right, for some, these symptoms, but maybe by coming here, we've identified that where you haven't identified it before, you need psychological, mental, clinical help.
Yeah, that's a great question. Every retreat, every group that we do has a counselor who's either on site the whole time or as at least on standby for parts where they're not present. A lot of times people come on retreat having already been through some degree of counseling, but we're also a bridge to counselors if they haven't been there. Because having a counselor on the retreat, they get a little taste of what it's like to talk one-on-one, kind of break the stigma, break the intimidation factor. In Arlington, we had a really great down-to-earth counselor give a talk and just be available. And people were like, oh, it's not so scary to talk to a counselor. And so we take a lot of people who haven't been through counseling yet and open a door for them, making referrals, opening, all of these possibilities for them to seek that further help that they may need. And it's always something that we have to do in cases where there's, thoughts of self-harm, abuse, anything like that. We're always going to counseling. But I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people have spiritual director, counselor, and this healing ministry. Like all three of those things working together is really powerful.
Compounding. Yeah.
That's really good. So I've had this thought last several minutes, going to this idea of like the particular needs of adult children of divorce, and also particular excuses one might make to sort of not seek healing or to sort of like push that away. And it's totally understandable on a certain level, by the way. I was just having a conversation with somebody last night at our gathering for the alumni, Life Giving Wounds alumni, and we were talking about
which you came up with, right, in Arlington, the alumni.
His alumni came to fruition. Yeah. About the difficulty of like confession and also like spiritual direction, of not wanting to be known in your most like vulnerable, naked poverty, and that's like required for healing. So I mean, there's a real like thing there. But my question was going to be, somebody might say, okay, so look, the talk of wounds and things, maybe this is a bit much. I mean, aren't we all kind of sort of wounded by the fall and concupiscence? We're all kind of messed up. So what's the big deal with adult children of divorce in particular? What is it that, if I'm an adult child of divorce, what is it that I need that other people don't need? Like, why do I need healing in a way that perhaps other people don't?
Yeah, that's a deep question, because there's a lot of things that can traumatize us. Just look at war, for example. A lot of people go to war, they see their friends die, they come back, they really struggle for a long time. I would be so bold as to say our parents' divorce is on par with things like this, because like you're not supposed to see friends die. We're supposed to live in communion with each other. But I think our parents' marriage falling apart is so deep a wound, because that's where we come from. It is their bond. That's the origin of, that's how I'm here. It's not the physical ground I'm standing on, but it's the ontological ground. Ontos from the Greek, being. Yeah. It's that bond that I am the fruit of. Have you guys seen Back to the Future?
Yeah, of course. Okay,
Marty McFly goes back to 1955 and he sees his parents almost not dance together, and he starts to disappear.
Yeah.
This is something that children of divorce have written about. Like they say, I feel like the ground has gone out from underneath me, or I feel like I'm just literally invisible. Like I've got no right to be here anymore.
I even like, it's crazy you bring that up. Like I've had that exact thought, not when Marty's disappearing, but remember when he's looking at the picture, and it's siblings disappear before him. Like I've literally, during my parents' divorce, would have that image of my mom in my mind from that movie of the children disappearing. Yeah. So like, I'm like, oh, I thought I had an original thought here, but it just turns out it's very common. But yeah, it's but that really hits on a deep level that that there's others that feel that way too. Yeah. And it's widespread.
Yeah, and I think it relates then to another concept that was developed by the JP2 Institute following the research. It was this notion of a loss of home, a loss of where home is. Because you ask someone to define what a home is, it's tough to say all that home is, but everyone can certainly agree it's more than just the house, the building. Home is where the heart is, right? We like to say stuff like this to kind of grasp at something. There's something more to home than just location. When parents split, it's so ironic. People say, "Oh, 2 Christmases instead of just one, 2 homes instead of one." It's more like 2 houses but no home. Yeah, 2 houses but no home.
What a very consumerist way of trying to gloss over the cataclysm of your family falling apart. Like you get more consumption. Yeah. This came to mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and the kids. I mean, I didn't experience this growing up because I was 20 by the time. But now when I visit my parents, I kind of go back and forth. I kind of like stay at one, but I end up like visiting for half a day and coming back, and then visiting the next day and going back. And so children of divorce often end up kind of being on the road in between so much, and that's where between two worlds comes from. Like we're not in one united world. There was this book, terrible, called The Good Divorce by Constance Ahrens in 1994. It was kind of a product of the culture, but also influenced the culture. And
as opposed to The Great Divorce, which is C.S. Lewis.
Is good. Yeah, I love The Great Divorce.
Is good, but
it's about the divide between heaven and hell.
Bad. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The Good Divorce is this lady, Constance Ahrens, who went through divorce and is, in a certain sense, kind of trying to exonerate her decision and trying to say, oh, it's not divorce per se that hurts the kids. It's the language we use. So her proposal is we shouldn't say, we shouldn't speak of loss and division. We should talk about your family now has is binuclear. You have a maternal pole and a paternal pole of your binuclear home. This is a real suggestion she makes. Another real suggestion she makes is
thanks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. To solve the lack of closure question, maybe like a marriage ceremony, there could be a release ceremony.
LOL.
And that is the picture on the front cover. It's like a ring being deftly removed from the spouse's finger with like someone presiding.
I release you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it like,
Have a disunity candle. It's
a disunity candle. Yeah.
It's like, it's all inverted.
Yeah. And you know, it's really interesting.
Sounds satanic.
She spends that whole book trying to say, no, it's not the divorce, it's the language. She includes in an appendix an essay by one of her daughters who is trying to say, oh yeah, no, it's right. Her daughter's trying to say in the appendix, no, it's true what my mom's saying. It all depends on the language. But she actually says in that essay, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. So it really makes it tough to believe anything the book claims. But anyway,
I imagine that, I don't know if this is true or not, you get a lot of, like, how dare you make parents feel guilty about, doing what's best for them, like everyone gets divorced, like you're making such a big, I'm not saying people know it's a big deal, but you're making such a big deal about this in relation.
You're making it about you.
Yeah.
You hear that. Yeah. I've never heard it, but I've heard it being directed at others.
Yeah.
You rather than just being happy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, you do.
We do see that from time to time. Layla Miller wrote a book called Primal Loss in 2017 that was, it made a splash. So it was about, now Layla's not a child of divorce, but she had friends who were, and so she decided to do this project, ask a bunch of children of divorce, over 70, the same like 10 questions. Are children
like
resilient?
over 70 individuals?
Over 70 individuals, yes.
Okay, I was like, for some reason in my mind, I thought they were all
Age.
very old, yes.
Yeah, no. Over 70 children of divorce of different ages.
Okay.
The same 10 questions. Are children resilient? What would you say to your parents now? All of these kinds of things. And just like very raw responses. You don't see their names. You just kind of see passage. Anyway, she published that book and she got a ton of fire for that. Like a lot of pushback. A lot of people, counselors, like secular counselors pushing back and saying, what are you thinking? We have to protect the sacred right to divorce for people here. You're going to make all these divorcees feel bad because you're making them monsters, all of it. She's like, no. Have you read the book? I'm just trying to give voice to the people who have been silenced.
That sounds eerily familiar of certain other arguments that are along other, how do I put this? Gender-ish, sexuality type conversations, like how dare you assault the decision making and the choices that we're affirming. Right. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, so we had Layla Miller join one of our book club meetings where we were reading her book, and we were just like, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us a platform to share our experience. Like, we weren't contributors to the book, but we were like, thank you for publishing this and taking that pushback on our behalf. Like, we need great advocates like Layla Miller. And so to answer the question, a lot of pushback from the culture, what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to go that far to get pushback. Like, I teach theology of the body for a living, and I've had audiences before where, like, there's a clear amount of discomfort with even talking about marriage, like, in the beauty of marriage. Yeah. And even sometimes hostility, where, like, and it's hard because you're like, well, I just want to share the beauty of this thing. Yeah. And as an adult child of divorce myself, like, I'm a married man, like I feel like I'm sort of discovering the beauty of the sacrament, like on my own for the first time, not having too much to go off of until I discovered John Paul II's theology of the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And became a part of a wonderful Catholic community where there are a lot of good holy marriages that like I can surround myself and my wife with, and our kids and everything else. But I mean, it's the wounds in like both children of divorce and people who have gotten divorced, and sometimes those are the same people.
Yeah.
Too. You would know better than me the stats on that the likelihood of divorce for a child of divorce is, I know it's significantly higher
Mm-hmm.
than from a child from a family where there isn't divorce. But like those wounds go so deep that even bringing up like the beauty of marriage, the free, total, faithful, fruitful, and permanency and everything else, it can really elicit a lot of pain.
Yeah.
In people.
Yeah, and I've even seen this talk of we have to protect the sacred right to divorce come from children of divorce. And I think it's so twisted because
is that language you've heard, the sacred right to divorce?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the way I kind of see this is an inability to make a distinction between the person and their actions.
Yeah.
Right? We're called to love the sinner but hate the sin. So if you can acknowledge the dignity of each human person, but say, Mom, Dad, I love each of you, but I don't approve of, like, I can't give a thumbs up to the decisions that you made leading up to and through the divorce. If you're unable to make that distinction between person and action, one of two things happens. Either you like cut out your parents, or one or both, because you just see the big messy ball of divorce when you look at them, and you just know the hurt and the pain, and you can't distinguish, I should still love the person even if what they did hurt me. If you can't make that distinction, one reaction is to just hate the parent, cut them out. The other is to then say, okay, well, I love my parents so much, so maybe because I can't distinguish the action from them, maybe I make their action good.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so then they're like, I know my parents' divorce really hurt me, but I can't say that my parents did anything wrong. So maybe just divorce is good, even if it hurt me, or something like that. So it's so strange that, but that's just like a clear sign of confusion and error.
It goes back to the entire point of, Jesus talking about, divorce to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they're trying to trap him. He's like,
Yep.
Moses only gave it to you because of the hardness of your hearts, right? It was never meant to be that way, which, it triggers, the response that, how dare you have control over or try to impose some higher order of righteousness over my ability to choose, I mean, this is the parents talking, right? Like, what happens in my life in that vilifying divorce. Like, I imagine the ministry is very difficult because it necessarily means, and I know you said you don't deal with the circumstances surrounding divorce, but the hurt and the harm isn't necessarily divorce from the circumstances that led to divorce, because it maybe shouldn't have been in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you brought up about Matthew 19. Like, they're trying to catch him in because the two camps are, divorce can be for any reason or divorce only for specific reasons, which is kind of the eternal cultural question. Should we have no fault divorce or not? Do you remember what happens right after Jesus lays down this is not how it was in the beginning. I'm restoring it. This is the way it's going to be. Let no man tear asunder. What happens next? They bring children to him. They bring children to him. And the subtitles that kind of separate out the different parts of a book of scripture, those were added in the Middle Ages, right? So in the ancient text, it just reads straight through. Jesus is talking about divorce. He says, let no man tear asunder. and then right after that, they bring children to them. In our ministry, we like to kind of hypothesize and say, well, are these children of divorce? Maybe these people who are talking with Jesus, maybe their hearts melted, and maybe they were like touched by what he said and thought, well, if divorce is such a terrible thing, according to, natural law and in the eyes of God, then our poor children should be brought to Jesus. And what happens? The disciples rebuke them. The disciples are trying to silence them. And Jesus says, let the children come. Let the children come to me, and he lays hands on them, and then they go away. And then that's kind of the end of the scene. So we have some artwork. We have several pieces of artwork in our ministry now too. But the first one was called "Let the Children of Divorce Come to Me," and it depicts a child of divorce. You can see his parents are kind of closed off, arms folded away from the center, and the little kid is taking a step of faith towards Christ. He's like lifting his gaze. It's a beautiful, beautiful painting. It's a dialogue with a Picasso, actually, but it's based on that passage.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So that kind of gives me the clue that there's like a physical location of some sorts. Like, where is this at?
Retreat.
So you bring it with you to the retreat.
Oh, the painting.
Yeah, the painting.
Yeah.
Where's the painting at?
There's one. So the original is in our office in Maryland, right outside DC. But we've made a lot of prints, canvases, and prayer cards. It's also in a retreat guide that every participant has.
I don't know why I disconnected so much from the retreat. I was like, once it became a physical object and the retreat is like a thing that you attend, I was like, what was there like an art gallery associated to? Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah, of course you would use it at the retreat. Every
retreat, and we use the same retreat guide for our online participants too. So our fall online retreat is running on Wednesday evenings right now. They have that same retreat guide with that same Picasso and our new artwork that kind of redeems it in a certain way. But the original Picasso is in DC. I've seen that.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. At the National
Gallery of Art.
Yeah. Man, that place is so cool. They're just like, yeah, we'll put this Dali in the stairwell. This is the last stop for everyone. It's like, there is so much great art here. Even this famous work. We'll just put him right here in the stairwell. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great place.
Yeah. I really loved that piece you're talking about. Mm-hmm. When I saw it on your website, when Donna initially told me about your ministry, and I was
poking
around your website, and because I think you also have the original Picasso.
Yeah.
What is it called?
The Tragedy.
The Tragedy. That's right. And I don't think I had seen that one before, but ever since high school, I always had a fascination with, like, particularly for whatever reason, Picasso's Blue Period.
Yeah.
And so there was a one of his paintings, The Old Guitarist, was one that it's Picasso Blue Period, very similar style.
Yeah.
Was one that I was just like really interested in. It's a fascinating painting, and The Tragedy is as well. So I felt like a particular personal connection when I saw that this was like a play on a Picasso. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was
what's the guitar one called?
The Old Guitarist.
The Old Guitarist. My wife and I, on one of our first dates, she has an art degree. She's an artist, and one of the things that I was like, man, I'm really into this girl, is we were out on a date at this grungy bar, and she called the server over to tell them that the painting was supposed to be like horizontal, and they had it hanging vertically. She's like, you really need to hang that specific painting. You need to hang it right, because he's kind of hunched over. Mm. So like they had it going the wrong way, and she's like, yeah, you need to flip it. It needs to be I don't remember if it was supposed to be vertical or horizontal, but
I think it's supposed to be vertical.
Yeah,
it's hanging it's in DC.
Okay. Yeah,
and it's they have it hanging there vertically.
Yeah, So that kind of called to mind that with me is I was like, man, I forgot about it. I'm like,
they got art check.
Yeah, she's a professional. I'm about this. Yeah, that's so cool.
That's so cool.
Well, we are getting close to time here.
Okay.
But this has been great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
if
Been
you have
life-giving.
to, it has indeed. If you have to condense, kind of my final question, and I'll let them ask if they have one. But my final question is, if you could condense down, just given kind of everything that we've said, and maybe things that have not been said as of yet, your message to adult children of divorce, and your message to parents, divorced parents with children, right?
Yeah.
That was redundant, but divorced parents. What would those two be? Not as condensed as possible, but as condensed as appropriate.
Yeah, to the first, I think I would say to children of divorce. And I know it's almost cliche by this point to talk about hope, but there is so much hope for healing. I just say that because I remember what it was like before I started my healing journey. I just felt so stuck. If I could speak frankly, I felt like I was screwed. I was just like, well, this is it. I have no home to return to. I'm on my own, on the road, outside of these worlds. I can't do it on my own. And I was so lost. I didn't know where to turn. It was just like one of the darkest moments of my life. And then I began slowly to realize that healing is possible. And again, healing is not just surviving, but really connecting and finding beauty in sharing our wounds and carrying them together. And so, yeah, it's not just sad all weekend. The best expression I heard from a retreat, and at the end of a retreat, he goes, I almost didn't come on this retreat because I thought it would be lame. I thought it would be lame. And here I am to say it is 100% not lame. Amen to that. So I was just like,
You should get that testimonial on the website. 100%
certified not lame.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I just I kind of bring that up to break the tension, but also to kind of speak to a real concern. People think it's not going to be worth their time or energy to go into the wounds, to go on a retreat, to go to counseling, all this stuff, because they think it's just going to be a bummer. It's just going to be sad. It's just going to be lame. But it is like, you have no idea the joy that comes from this journey. To parents about this ministry, I want them to know there's nothing to be worried about. Like, if your concern here is that you want what's good for your child, you're confused. Because if you want truly what's good for your child, you want them to find healing. Have a little humility. Have some humility. Accept that your decisions may have caused some collateral damage in your children. Have just that much humility. Now, we're not going to get together on a weekend and just blame and be hateful. Do I seem like a hateful person? Like, we're not going to get on retreat and just be angry at or play the blame game. No, we're there to pick ourselves up, to walk together forward and upward. We're not there to just dwell on what's been said and done, or not said, not done. So have a little humility. If you really want what's good for your child, support them. I in best case scenario, I've seen people go on retreats on their parents' dollar, or like maybe on their mom's dollar. Dad told them about the retreat or something like that. Yeah. So there have been really amazing examples of people really taking accountability for, I might have, again, collaterally caused my kids some pain. I want to help them get better. Play a role in that. Accountability. Exactly. So those are what I would say.
I found, just speaking from my own experience, having gone on that retreat, that I loved my parents more, like, afterwards, as a result of going.
Yeah.
I found that I understood a little better like where the particular wounds were, and there were a lot of surprises. I thought, I got myself pretty well figured out. And then, going there, I was like, wow, no, there's a lot of other stuff there too.
That's how I feel about this podcast episode.
But then, but also it was that that I also realized how much healing the Lord had already done in my life.
Yeah.
That just in my own particular journey, that seeing that my relationship with both of my parents is so much better now than I think, frankly, it's ever been.
Yep.
And then that third bit that like I found that I was like more able to love my parents after having gone on the retreat than before. Like there wasn't it definitely wasn't like, and your parents suck.
No,
and it was like none of that. So I can also speak to that as somebody who's been on that retreat.
Yeah, beautifully said, and I can say the same too. There were a couple of years where I had to kind of distance myself a little bit from one or both, because I really needed that space, that healthy distance. I would say the past 4 years, I've made a lot of progress in kind of repairing and allowing to draw nearer. So I'm in a great place with both my parents. I know I don't talk to them all the time, but I have a good relationship with both of them. And I think my siblings, I hope that they are able to take some steps as I have in their healing as well, so that they can be in a better place too, in a lot of ways. But I can certainly say like I'm in a better place with each of my parents, where I am on my healing journey than I was before I started.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you guys have any final thoughts?
No, I just want to thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
At least I'm sold. So hopefully others are too. Maybe some humility on my part to think, hey, maybe I don't have everything figured out, and I can find more healing. So that was kind of the pitch that I got internally from this. And then I guess the biggest thing though I wanted to ask is just like, how can you plug in? And I'm sure we'll ask if there's anything else that you want to kind of let people know about or and promote for them.
Yeah. So if you're here in Louisville, we are going to be figuring out whether we're going to do a small group next or another retreat, maybe a book club, something like that. We'll figure that out with the Family Renewal Project. If you're outside of Louisville, we have 29 other chapters. We're getting into more colleges right now. We are piloting actually a college program at a couple of places, including the University of Louisville.
Nice.
And so soon, maybe next year, we'll be able to roll out a program to more colleges and Newman centers. We're actually in one seminary right now. A lot of priestly vocations come from intact families, but still seminarians who come from this background need some healing too. But anyways, if you are not near one of our in-person chapters, we have a robust online ministry. 3 times a year, we do 7-week online programs where we in the spring we have what's called the Online Spring Support Group, which talks about a lot of relevant topics, not necessarily the same arc as the retreat, but very related to it. In the summer, we read a book. Like this summer, we read Les Miserables.
Interesting.
Yeah, because Cosette is a child of separated parents.
The full version, or it wasn't abridged?
The abridged. It's still 800 pages, but
I love to hear about how the French irrigation system works for 3 or 4 pages. Yeah.
Or Hugo's thoughts about the convent life and all this, But yeah, and then in the fall we have like our retreat just basically spread out over 7 weeks. So no matter where you are in the United States, there is something available to you, and that's how you can plug in.
The Louisville chapter is now officially on the Life Giving Wounds website, correct?
Yeah,
so it's lifegivingwounds.org.
Lifegivingwounds.org.
So if you're in Louisville, you want to get involved, go to lifegivingwounds.org, check that out. And I guess our contact info is on that, and they can find us that way.
Yep.
So, do that. Other than that, is there anything else you want to plug?
No, I just, I really thank you guys for taking this issue seriously, and for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I just ask you guys and all of our listeners to pray for our continued growth as a ministry. We're a very small team, still looking to expand, a lot of work to do, a lot of hearts to reach. So please pray that we can get the resources that we need to continue to grow.
Yeah. Cool. I actually do. I'm going to plug a couple other things for you. The book, Life Giving Wounds book, by Dan and Bethany Miola. Great book.
Yeah.
So I think you can find that on that website as well. But it's laid out as like the wound of X, and then how that is redeemed, kind of chapter over chapter.
Yeah.
And it's really great, and it's an interesting read as a child of divorce, because like you read like the wound of blank, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. That's like terrible. And then you read the next chapter, and then you're like, oh, that's beautiful. This could be redeemed. So it's a
spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like some of the things we said, like the wound to identity, and then finding your identity in Christ. So it's just like 1 step, 2 step answer to the malady. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you gotta give us your, because you dropped it. What's your favorite Lord of the Rings movie?
Oh gosh. I mean, I love them all. It's got to be the extended edition, though.
Okay.
Yeah. I would have to say,
but the abridged Les Miserables.
Oh my gosh!
Come on,
I mean, I guess the final one, because I love seeing at the end. I actually wrote on our blog, on our website, I wrote a reflection on Lord of the Rings as a child of divorce, and one of the things that I really loved about the end is that Frodo, he's leaving for the Grey Havens, which is kind of like this quasi-heaven realm. And Sam wants him to stay. But Frodo tells him, look, we didn't do this for us. We didn't save the Shire so that we could enjoy it. We saved the Shire so that other people can enjoy it, like our children. He's saying this, Sam, who has children at that point. We saved this for our kids. And I think that's actually kind of like what we're about in Life Giving Wounds. It's really not finding home again necessarily for us, but finding the healing so that we can build a home for our children that we didn't have.
Amen.
Yeah.
For Frodo.
For Frodo. Exactly.
Well, thanks so much for being with us. This is truly a joy. So,
yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. And thank all of you for sticking around. We'll see you on the next episode of Spirit and Spire. God bless you.